The silence right now as a Nintendo fan is deafening. And what I mean by that is that on one hand you have Nintendo remaining silent and, despite doing some suspicious things lately, they're gonna keep their cards close to their chest. And on the flip side you have the Nintendo community. And oh, the Nintendo community. In one segment, people are both waiting for an announcement for Nintendo Direct this week that's supposed to be happening on the 15th, and debating amongst themselves if it'll be a partner showcase, Direct Mini, or a full-on Direct. And in another segment of the community, you have people that are Team 2024 for the Switch 2, and the other team that's Team 2025 for Switch 2. And other people just fall in the third category where they're just pretty much growing annoyed of all this new hardware talk. And even though I can't relate, I do understand. But regardless of what team you're on though, rumors are still running rampant and I love talking about Nintendo consoles. And I think we can all agree that if there is one person here on planet Earth that would know if there's a new console happening this year or not, would be none other than himself, President of Nintendo, Mr. Furukawa. But before diving into the juicy stuff, let me just mention one thing right quick, it won't take long. By this point in the video, most people probably would have clicked off. I post weekly Nintendo videos, so if that's your thing, please consider liking and subscribing, and without further ado, let's go right into the video. Recently, in the Q&A portion of Nintendo's financial briefing, Mr. Furukawa spoke about a variety of things. However, something that caught my eye, and I personally haven't seen many people talking about it, which is very strange to me, is basically he weighed in on the current Switch sale performance while briefly giving away a few vague comments on the new hardware. So let's break down what he said and make it in more digestible pieces. To start off, he said, "Last year, when Nintendo Switch entered its 7th year since launch, we had said that we had entered uncharted territory because in the history of our dedicated video game platform business, it was unprecedented to expect sales of 15 million units of hardware and 180 million units of software in the 7th year of the life of a system. When we look at the sales situation so far this fiscal year against this backdrop, we believe that hardware sales have held stable since the first half and that the holiday season results were steady. Increasing the number of new consumers has been more difficult given that the platform is in its 7th year after launch. But, as previously discussed, we want to maintain momentum in the business throughout a good balance of both first-time buyers and demand for multiple units. During the holiday season, we noted a particular rise in first-time buyers of our hardware, and we see this as a positive sign for the Nintendo Switch business going forward. Personally, when I read this, two things comes to mind. So the first thing is how he mentioned how, Nintendo is in uncharted territory, and that the Switch is, whether we like to admit it or not, on its last leg. For the most part, people that wanted a Switch have already bought one, and the people that wanted to own more than one probably do at this point too. It's just kind of the reality of the situation. Eventually you do hit a saturation point in the market. And I think this is the first mention to which, Nintendo kind of acknowledges they're kind of at the end of the line. However, it's not enough proof to actually say this is definitively what they're saying to us. However, they did mention at the end there that they said that we see this as a positive sign for the Nintendo Switch business going forward, that, in the holiday season, there were still people picking up the system. What I personally think they mean by this is that a little while ago there was a rumor that the Switch was probably going to be getting a new revision this year, possibly in the form of a Nintendo Switch Mini. Which at first glance I do understand that it might seem a little bit weird that, hey, if they're going to be making a whole new console, why are they going to be doing a revision to the Switch? But realistically, this system would be a revision to make the hardware less expensive, meaning they can open the door for the people that have always been on the fence for a Switch and maybe just couldn't afford it or justify buying it. After that, he says this. Looking at software, although overall unit sales were slightly lower year on year, we released new titles for flagship Nintendo IP, including The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Pikmin 4, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder this fiscal year. And they were enjoyed by many consumers. I think that this year has been meaningful, both in terms of releasing a steady stream of new Nintendo titles, and in terms of increasing the popularity of these kinds of series going forward. So not only have hardware sales slowed down, the software sales have also started to slow down as well. And just as a little side note, Furukawa himself says that Pikmin is a major flagship franchise for the Nintendo. So for anyone that says Pikmin isn't, checkmate. Moving on to the last thing Furukawa said, he says, regarding new hardware, we are unable to make any comment beyond saying that our company is consistently conducting research and development on new hardware and software. As we mentioned before, articles claiming to reference information released by Nintendo and other speculations have been appearing mainly on the internet lately. Information that has not been officially announced by Nintendo can mislead consumers and investors. We encourage you to exercise good judgment based on the information we provide on our official website and social media accounts. It takes a long time and thorough planning to get ready for new hardware. And those plans are not impacted by whatever the latest business conditions might be. And I find this paragraph to be so incredibly interesting, especially near the end. Now, of course, when they say they're, constantly conducting research and development for new hardware and software, that's absolutely true. And of course, everybody knows that they start planning these things years in advance. And it is also 100% factually true that absolutely nothing that anyone is saying at this point is officially correct until Nintendo themselves comes out and posts to either Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all of it, and says it themselves that the Switch 2 is coming. But whether that's true or not is irrelevant. It's not necessarily going to stop people from speculating about the new hardware. So speculate we shall. Notice how they say, we are unable to make any comments beyond saying that our company is consistently conducting research and development on new hardware. Although, like I mentioned before, of course they're always looking ahead for what they can do next, they are just saying they are unable to make any comments at this time. Whereas years in the past, they just plain out said, no new hardware this year. Pack it up, guys. That to me is very, very fascinating. But also near the end they say those plans are not impacted by whatever the latest business conditions might be. Now this next part is going to make me sound slightly hypocritical, but I swear don't misconstrue my words, this is what I mean by it. Yes, I did say earlier that the Switch hardware and software sales were going down. But although the numbers might be going down, if I'm skiing and my mountain of choice is Mount Everest, it's going to be a very long time before I get all the way down the hill. So the sales might still be high, they're just going lower. But typically in the video game industry, if things are starting to go down at this point, they're probably not going to be picking up again and going on for 10, 15, 20 years, So for those who say that since the Switch is still selling a lot, it means the Switch 2 couldn't possibly be on the way, unfortunately I think that argument doesn't stand anymore. And it comes back to the argument I made in last week's video. I'll make sure to tag it at the end, so make sure to check it out after, but I showed this graph. A while ago, Nintendo came out and said they are looking in having a smooth transition to the Switch to whatever's next. In the first graph you can see that the end of the Switch's life is when they hit 0 sales, and that's just not realistic. But realistically speaking, they are looking for something closer to the second line of my graph. They want the Switch and whatever comes next to live in tandem for a little bit, so that even though the Switch 2, let's just call it, is on the market, they can still sell this quote-unquote Switch Mini that I was talking about earlier. But yeah, with all that being said, how does this make you feel? Do you think it validates or hinders the believability of the new rumor of a tentative late March reveal for the next console? As per usual, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, Wadao!